Hello and welcome to today's episode of Knobi Cooks. Today I have another traditional German recipe for you. Today I will show you how to prepare Königsberger Klopse. The dish, consisting of cooked potatoes, cooked meatballs and a cream sauce, might not be the most colorful, but it sure is bursting with taste. If you enjoy my content, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel. For today's recipe, we will need an onion, some potatoes, some breadcrumbs, ground beef, cream, 2 eggs, flour, capers, vegetable broth, spices and herbs, a large pan with water in it, a pot with water in it, and another small pot with clarified butter. We will start by preparing our broth in which we will cook our Klopse. And Klopse is simply a German expression for large meatballs. For this broth we will of course need some water. So fill your pan with enough water so the meatballs will later be submerged, but not too much so that nothing will spill over the rim of your pan. To get a nice broth, we will first add some vegetable broth, then a healthy dose of laurel leaves, some black pepper, and also a good dose of allspice into our water. And instead of grinding your pepper, you can also put whole black peppercorns into the broth and then simply fish them out later on. And in theory, if you want to go for an extra beefy taste, you could substitute the vegetable broth with beef stock, though vegetable broth will be just fine. After seasoning our broth, we will bring it to a light boil. So go and put some heat onto your pan. In addition to that, we will need to prepare our water for boiling our potatoes. So go and take out another pot, fill it half with water, add some salt into it and then put the heat on. This one we want boiling properly. And now while our broth and our potato water are heating up, we will take care of our onion. First, cut your onion in half. One half we will use for our meatballs and the other half we will use for our sauce. The half onion we're gonna add to our beef, we want to dice rather fine. We do this so that we can knead our meat dough better later on. On the other hand, the onion dices we will put into our sauce don't need to be super fine. You can dice them in any way you want. If you prefer a chunkier sauce, go for larger dices, and if you prefer a more smooth sauce, go for smaller or very fine dices. And in theory, if you prefer an extra dose of onions, you could also add a half or maybe a whole onion into your broth. At least that's what my traditional recipe is asking for, though if you ask me, that's not really necessary. Though if you want to follow that route, go for larger dices for your broth. In the next step, we will prepare our potatoes. You should definitely use waxy potatoes here, so you don't accidentally end up with potato mash. We will prepare butter potatoes with parsley as a side. First we will start by peeling our potatoes. Here I don't have very much advice for you. Simply take your potato peeler and then peel off all of your potato peel. Go around the potato evenly until nothing is left. You don't have to be clinically clean, though most of the peel should be removed at the end. And if there are any bad looking spots remaining or dirt inclusions in your potato, simply cut those out. Oh, and now that I think of it, I have one general advice for you when it comes to peeling potatoes. Go for a few large potatoes because they will be easier and faster to peel than a bunch of small potatoes. And once we have finished peeling our potatoes, we will now cut them into smaller pieces. Here you should try to go for as evenly sized pieces as you possibly can. If your potato pieces are very unevenly sized, some of them may not be properly cooked at the end, while others will almost certainly be potato mash material. So keep that in mind whenever you're preparing cooked potatoes in this manner. Once we have finished cutting our potatoes, we will put them into the pot with boiling water and stir them once. Though be careful of splashes of boiling water during this step. Next up are our meatballs or Klopse. For this, take your bowl with ground beef and our onion dices. Then first add seasoning in form of salt, ground pepper and parsley. I am using dried parsley, though you can use fresh parsley if you want to. After that, add the eggs into the bowl. Though be careful with the eggshell and make sure to not drop any of it into the bowl. And then as a last ingredient, simply add some breadcrumbs. Go for a healthy dose, though the resulting dough shouldn't be too dry and should still be slightly moist in the end. Traditionally, you would use old dried bread or old pastries instead of breadcrumbs. First, you would soak those in water for a while and then squeeze out the water before adding them into your bowl. Though either way is fine. I mainly use breadcrumbs in this step because most of the time I don't have any old bread laying around. And another variation of this klopse dough includes anchovy paste. You would get a tube with anchovy paste and then add a healthy dose of it into the dough. However, for me that's kind of an oddity and that's why I'm leaving it out. I have never actually cooked the variation with anchovy paste because it's rather hard to come by and it also sounds kind of weird. Though I should definitely try it out sometime. Let's proceed to the next step. Before putting our klopse or meatballs into the broth, we will first need to fish out some of the ingredients. Also, it doesn't hurt to take a look at the boiling potatoes from time to time. Make sure they're not falling apart because they're boiling away like crazy, and also that the pot is not boiling over. But back to the broth. We will now fish out the laurel leaves, all of the allspice kernels, and if you have put them in there, also fish out the whole black peppercorns. We do this to ensure that none of them stick to the meatballs later on. And in addition to that, they will now have transferred lots of their taste into our broth, so we don't actually need them anymore. And if you have decided to put some additional onions into your broth, you can leave those in there. You don't have to take them out. Before forming our meatballs, make sure the broth is not boiling too much, and once you have taken care of that, we can start. First, knead the meatballs thoroughly. Make sure all of the different ingredients are mixed well together. And also make sure your dough is neither too dry nor too wet. If it feels too dry, maybe add another egg. And if it feels too wet, well, simply add some more breadcrumbs into your bowl. Once you have finished kneading the dough and you think it has the right consistency, start forming your meatballs. And while doing so, try to go for as evenly sized meatballs as possible. But also try to go for rather large meatballs, like you can see me forming in the video. This way you make sure you don't end up with meatballs, but with the true and only klopse. And after forming your meatballs, simply put them into the broth. We will cook them right away, we will not fry them in a pan first. This might sound unusual at first, but trust me, your klopse will turn out just fine. While cooking your klopse, you have to keep one very important thing in mind. The broth should never be boiling too much, because if that's the case, you risk your klopse falling apart. So make sure to check on your klopse regularly. And while they are bathing in your broth, make sure to turn them from time to time. Though also take care to not rip them apart in the process. Depending on the consistency of your klopse dough, they might be rather fragile, or you will have no issue at all turning them around. And if you have a large pan with a lid like me, put the lid on once you have turned them for the first time. This way they will not only cook faster, but also more evenly. After a good while, your klopse should look something like this. You can see them sitting there relaxed in their broth and cooking away happily like they have never done anything else in their lives. I would say in my case it took about 15 to 20 minutes to reach this point. At this point we can lower the heat and simply let them sleep in the broth until the sauce is done and we serve them. Since we now need some space to prepare our sauce, I moved both the large pan and the pot with our potatoes to the back of the stovetop. To prepare our sauce, we will start by sauteing our onions in some butter or clarified butter. And as a small tip, go for a larger pot than I did. It will make your life easier. In the meantime, you can also already lower the heat on your potatoes. They should be almost finished by now. And while our onions are getting glassy in our pot, I have a question for you. When you think of German cuisine or a German meal, what comes to your mind first? Is it sauerkraut or maybe schnitzel or something else completely? I have already made a video on how to prepare spätzle with sauce, another traditional German dish, and I have many more traditional German dishes in my repertoire, though I am very curious what you, my viewers, think a typical German dish is. But let's not digress too much. Let's take another look at our onions. As you can see, mine are by now very glassy. You don't need to brown them in the pot, they simply should turn out glassy and be mostly soft. And once the onions have reached that stage, we can start preparing our roux. For this, as always, add some flour into your pot and then stir it under. Make sure it clings to the onions and doesn't burn or stick to the corners of your pot. In addition to that, make sure it doesn't brown too much. A little bit is okay, though we want to end up with a white sauce in the end. Oh, and if you haven't by now, go get some lemon juice. We will need that for our sauce too. I forgot to mention that in the beginning, though it should be included in the recipe. Do you have your lemon juice ready? Perfect. In the next step, we will take some of our Klopse broth and put it into our pot. For this, I recommend you use some kind of sauce ladle. And this exact step is basically where the magic happens for this sauce. Our Klopse broth is now so full of taste from all of the spices we put in there in the beginning, but also from the meat juice from our Klopse themselves. Which, if you ask me, simply serves as the perfect base for a nice and tasty sauce. While adding the broth into our pot, also make sure to stir the contents from time to time. And in addition to that, once there is enough broth in our pot, you can also add your lemon juice into the mix. I am, as most of the time, using a frozen cube of lemon juice. Depending on how creamy or liquid you like your sauce, simply add a little more or a little less broth into the pot. Once you are satisfied with the amount of liquid in your pot, simply keep stirring and heating up your sauce. By now we have reached the last stages of cooking. We are almost done. We simply need to finish our sauce. And to finish it, we simply need to add the remaining ingredients. This includes our capers, but make sure to drain off the liquid they're preserved in before adding them into the sauce. Most of the time that's some kind of salty vinegar and we don't want it in our sauce. Also add the cream into the sauce. You could theoretically, as I often do, also use cream cheese for a creamier sauce, though it's up to you. And after that, season your sauce. But before you do that, taste it and see whether you need to add any more pepper or salt to it. Chances are good that you don't need to add much seasoning because the broth was so full of taste already. In any case, add a good portion of parsley into your sauce because we haven't included that in either the broth or the sauce yet. Here the same goes as for our meatballs or klopse. You can use fresh parsley if you have it, but you don't have to. And if your sauce turned out too sour because of the lemon juice and the vinegar clinging to your capers, well, you can then add a little bit of sugar to it. After seasoning and adding all of our ingredients, simply stir the sauce and once again bring it up to heat. And that's it, we now only need to prepare our potatoes. Take your pot and drain away all of the potato water. And once you have done that, add a good chunk of butter or clarified butter into your pot. And finally, to finish the potatoes, add some parsley. Here I actually would recommend you to get some fresh parsley if you can, though if you only have dried parsley as I did for this video, that also works fine. The fresh parsley simply would add some additional color and crunch to your potatoes. And that's it, we have reached the end of the cooking tutorial. Our dish is done and can now be served. I very much hope you enjoyed today's episode of Knobi Cooks, as well as the dish I have shown you in this video. However unusual it might seem to you at first, it really is worth a try. I too was skeptical at first, though now every time I cook this dish I'm blown away by the taste. So if you did go down that road and cook this dish yourself, let me know down below in the comments how it tasted. Also, if you have ever eaten Königsberger Klopse with anchovy paste, let me know whether it makes a huge difference. Like I said earlier, I myself have never tried this dish with anchovy paste. And with that said, I wish you a wonderful day. I'm Knobi and I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.